Imagine a director who started his cinematic journey by assembling a loyal troupe of actors, only to dramatically shift gears towards spotlighting individual leading men. Paul Thomas Anderson's evolution in casting is nothing short of a thrilling transformation that challenges the very heart of filmmaking collaboration. But here's where it gets controversial. Is this pivot a bold step forward or a risky departure from the magic of ensemble chemistry? Let's dive in and explore how Anderson's choices have reshaped his films, from his early days to his latest work with Leonardo DiCaprio. In the beginning of his career, Paul Thomas Anderson seemed to draw inspiration from his idol Robert Altman by building what you might call an unofficial repertory company of actors. For those new to the term, a repertory company is like a trusted group of performers who keep showing up in a director's films, much like a theater troupe that recycles talent across productions. Anderson's early crew included stars like John C. Reilly, Philip Baker Hall, Melora Walters, and Philip Seymour Hoffman, who all kicked off together in his debut, Hard Eight. They carried on into Boogie Nights and Magnolia, creating a sense of familiarity and continuity that felt almost familial. And get this, Boogie Nights and Magnolia even shared more cast members, such as Julianne Moore, William H. Macy, Ricky Jay, and Luis Guzman, making these films feel like interconnected chapters in a larger story. Anderson wasn't just echoing Altman, he also mirrored his peers in clever ways. He breathed new life into Burt Reynolds' career, albeit briefly, and guided him to an Oscar nod in Boogie Nights. He even scooped up Tom Cruise for Magnolia, anticipating Quentin Tarantino's later move toward big-name stars after Pulp Fiction. It was easy to picture Anderson endlessly remixing his favorites: Reilly, Hoffman, Moore, Macy, and maybe even Cruise in future projects. The possibilities seemed endless, like a director's dream of perpetual collaboration. But here's the part most people miss. As we entered the 21st century, Anderson's approach to casting took a sharp turn. Punch Drunk Love featured a few of his regulars like small roles for Guzman and Hoffman, but it centered on Adam Sandler in a way that oddly mirrored Cruise's arc in Magnolia, leveraging a superstar's strengths while flipping their usual routines on their head. Then came There Will Be Blood, marking a fresh era with the casting of Daniel Day-Lewis, who was famously selective, only taking on a new film every couple of years. From 2007 onward, Anderson worked with a mix of eclectic talents, but for the first time, he revisited leading men. Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood and Phantom Thread, and Joaquin Phoenix in The Master and Inherent Vice. In this light, Leonardo DiCaprio's role in One Battle After Another sits right in the middle, blending elements of both styles. The fact that the reclusive Day-Lewis signed on for not one, but two Anderson films feels like a rare honor bestowed on the director, almost like earning a cinematic knighthood. This prestige seeps into the films themselves. Phantom Thread and There Will Be Blood aren't just worshipful of their legendary leads. Day-Lewis vanishes into his characters, as he always does. Yet, figures like Reynolds Woodcock and Daniel Plainview exploit the actor's towering presence. We're not supposed to idolize them, at least not in the way they'd want, but they dominate the narratives with commanding force, leading to starkly different endings. Plainview claws for total control, culminating in a brutal, soul-shattering climax. Woodcock, on the other hand, learns to yield to his partner, played by Vicky Krieps, finding a path to redemption from his overbearing, perfectionist ego. That shift only lands if Woodcock comes off as intimidating in his subtle, haute couture manner. Think of it as a quiet storm of control. Joaquin Phoenix, in contrast, is a more introspective performer. Over the past decade or so, he often appears on the brink of withdrawing into himself, delivering lines with hesitant murmurs. A Master marked a turning point for this style. While hints were there in earlier roles as the troubled World War II veteran Freddie Quell, he embodies a twisted, isolated intensity. Since then, this vibe has been hard for him to shake. Some might argue it even influenced his Oscar-winning turn in Joker, which felt like a nod to his own groundbreaking work. Even in the lighter Inherent Vice, where he nails hilarious stoner pratfalls as a detective in a Thomas Pynchon adaptation. Phoenix maintains a withdrawn, diminished aura. DiCaprio brings a more approachable, star power energy to the table. It's baked into his Hollywood DNA. He's a big reason why Anderson's second Pynchon-inspired film feels like one of his most welcoming yet. One Battle After Another also strays further from its source than Inherent Vice did. Still, DiCaprio echoes Phoenix by portraying Bob Ferguson, an ex-radical steeped in suspicion, trying to protect his teenage daughter in seclusion, as a dazed, clumsy everyman. But Bob's fueled by rage and frantic worry, especially when his daughter faces danger, rather than Phoenix's melancholic slump. Much like Cruz in Magnolia, DiCaprio channels echoes of past roles, humbled by everyday struggles. Sure, Frank Mackey is a success, but he's peddling seduce destroy, tactics at tacky seminars. The film even pokes fun at Cruz, referencing him as a role model for Bob's reluctant heroics, marking the first time an Anderson alum is name-dropped in a later movie, especially since most of his stories are set before the 1970s. By choosing an actor who balances Phoenix's unease with Day-Lewis's poise, Anderson highlights Bob's flaws without making his potential victories feel ridiculous. There's a practical side to casting DiCaprio, too. It likely unlocked a larger budget for the project. This might be a temporary shift, as DiCaprio could return to Martin Scorsese films and his list of acclaimed directors, rather than becoming Anderson's go-to face. Yet One Battle After Another hints at a budding new repertory group. Alana Haim, who's shown in Licorice Pizza, reprises a smaller role, while Sean Penn, who had a brief scene in Pizza, gets more screen time here. Benicio del Toro also reunites after Inherent Vice, but unlike the seamless Magnolia ensemble, these actors don't mesh in the same synchronized way. How could they in such a different film? Adding to the patchwork feel, Anderson's most frequent collaborator, Philip Seymour Hoffman, passed away tragically in 2014. His presence in post-2000 films bridged back to those early ensemble days, but with his loss, that continuity frayed. One Battle After Another, with its themes of broken connections, mirrors this fragmented history between actors and director. As Anderson steps away from large unified casts, even his bigger ensembles lack that old balance. It makes sense he'd lean toward a recurring leading man, like DiCaprio for Scorsese or Denzel Washington for Spike Lee. DiCaprio anchors One Battle After Another effectively, but it feels fitting that in his 50s, he might not carry that torch forever. Anderson understands that even legendary actors have limits. They can only propel a story so far. Jesse Hassinger, Rock Marooned, is a writer based in Brooklyn. He contributes regularly to the AV Club, Polygon, and The Week, and hosts podcasts at www.sportsalcohol.com. What do you think? Does Anderson's shift from ensembles to leading men represent progress in filmmaking or a loss of that collaborative spark? Is it fair to say Phoenix's style has become a crutch, or is it a brilliant evolution? And could DiCaprio become Anderson's new signature star, or is this just a one-off? Share your opinions in the comments. Let's debate.